and win the fight by technical knockout with 30 seconds remaining. Saladin Parnasse vs. Kenneth Cross. Let's move on to the second fight of the main card. Saladin Parnasse, the 28-year-old Frenchman, standing 1.72 m tall, with 22 wins and 2 losses in his career, faces Kenneth Cross, the boss, a 31-year-old American, standing 1.82 m tall, with 17 wins and 4 losses in his career. Roberlis de Spain wins. And the fight only lasted 3 minutes. The fight was slower, with exchanges of blows, but little happening, until Roberlis de Spain landed 3 accurate punches in a row, knocking Junior Sagano out. Junior Sagano vs. Roberlis de Spain. Let's go to the first fight of today's main card. Junior Almeida dos Santos, also known, and very much so, as Junior Sagano, returns to the ring. The 42-year-old, 1.93 m tall Brazilian faces Roberlis de Spain Sanquit, who comes from Cuba, is 2 meters tall and 37 years old, to open the first fight of the main card. Preliminary card Part 2. After the first 3 fights of the preliminary card ended by judges' scores, the final 3 were more intense. Jason Jackson defeated Jeff Crichton by knockout with punches, with 22 seconds remaining in the first round. Adriano Moraes, with 4:59 of the third round, submitted Fumin Kuta. And in the last fight, with 57 seconds remaining in the round, Namo Fazel submitted Jake Babian in the second round. Preliminary card, Part 1, and we already have the results of the preliminary card. Brandon Jenkins defeated Chris Avila by judges' scores, with scores of 29-28, 29-28 and 28-29. In the second fight, Aline Pereira defeated Jade Masan Wong, also by judges' scores, with scores of 29-28, 30-26 and 30-27, unanimously for the victory in the fight. Good evening. And we're going with MMA Netflix tonight here on VAVEL. Tonight's MVP event takes place at the Intuit Dome, hosting the MMA event. And tonight's main fight will be between Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano, in Netflix's MMA debut. How and where to watch the Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano fight live, in addition to real-time coverage here on VAVEL US, with all the action and excitement of the Netflix MMA fight. The Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano fight will be streamed exclusively on the Netflix app, the owner of today's event. When is the Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano fight and how can I watch it live? If you want to watch the Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano fight live on TV, your options are no broadcast. If you want to watch it via a streaming service or app, your options are Netflix. If you want to watch it online, VAVEL US is your best option. Intuit Dome. Let's go to California for this Netflix MMA premiere. Finally, today's event takes place at the Intuit Dome, located in Inglewood, California. Opened in 2024, the arena hosts Los Angeles Clippers games, with a capacity of over 18,000 spectators for events like today's. Main card. Junior dos Santos vs. Roberlis de Spain. Saladin Parnasse vs. Kenneth Cross. Francis Ngannou vs. Philippe Lins, heavyweight co-main event. Nate Diaz vs. Mike Perry, welterweight co-main event. Fumin Kuta. Namo Fazel vs. Jake Babian. Who is Mike Perry, how does he fight, and what are his statistics? Mike Perry has 14 wins and 8 losses in his career, with 11 by knockout. Mike has a 47% striking accuracy rate, landing 4.32 strikes per minute, with an average of 5.16 strikes defended per minute, and a 53% defense rate. In takedowns, Mike has a 41% accuracy rate, averaging 0.81 every 15 minutes, with an average of 0.18 submissions and a 79% takedown defense rate. Finally, Mike lands 63% of his strikes to the opponent's head, 16% to the body, and 21% to the legs. Who is Nate Diaz, how does he fight, and what are his statistics? Nate Diaz has 22 wins and 13 losses in his career, with 5 by knockout and 13 by submission. Nate has a 45% striking accuracy rate, landing 4.57 strikes per minute, in addition to an average of 3.77 strikes defended per minute and a 53% strike defense rate. In takedowns, Nate has a 31% accuracy rate, averaging 1.05 takedowns every 15 minutes, with an average of 1.29 submission attempts every 15 minutes and a 42% takedown defense rate. Finally, Nate lands 75% of his strikes to his opponent's head, 16% to the body, and 9% to the legs. Who is Gina Carano, how does she fight, and what are her statistics? With no fights recorded in the UFC to date, Gina Carano has a 47% striking accuracy rate, landing 4.50 strikes per minute, and a 65% defense rate, defending 2.66 strikes per minute. In takedowns, Gina has a 67% success rate, averaging 1.24 every 15 minutes, in addition to an average of 1.55 submissions every 15 minutes and an 86% takedown defense rate. Finally, Gina lands 67% of her strikes to her opponent's head, 17% to the body, and 15% to the legs. Who is Ronda Rousey, how does she fight, and what are her statistics? Ronda Rousey, a former UFC bantamweight champion, has 12 wins and 2 losses in her career. Ronda has a 53% striking accuracy rate, landing 4.17 strikes per minute, and a 44% defense rate, defending 4.14 strikes per minute. In takedowns, Ronda has a 68% success rate, averaging 6.26 takedowns every 15 minutes, with an average of 4.8 submissions per 15 minutes and a 50% takedown defense rate. Finally, Ronda lands 71% of her strikes to her opponent's head, 18% to the body, and 11% to the legs. Francis Ngannou vs. Philippe Lins. Let's move on to another fight on the main card. Francis Ngannou, the Predator, is 39 years old and comes from France, standing 1.93 meters tall, with 18 wins and 3 losses. He faces Philippe Lins, the Brazilian also known as Monstro, who is 40 years old, 1.85 meters tall, with 18 wins and 5 losses in his career. Thanks. And that's all for now. With Ronda Rousey's victory over Gina Carano in just 15 seconds, I thank you for watching this Netflix MMA premiere event, which took place at the Intuit Dome. Stay tuned for updates and upcoming events, and thank you for the pleasure of sharing the excitement of this historic event. Good night and until next time. Ronda Rousey wins. The main event lasted 15 seconds. Ronda went after Gina Carano, managing to take the fight to the ground. And after those 15 seconds on the ground, Ronda Rousey locked in an armbar and Gina tapped out, giving Ronda the victory and closing the main event with a show by Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano. Now we move on to the last fight, the main event of today. Ronda Rousey, 39 years old, 1.67 meters tall, with 12 wins and 2 losses, from the United States, faces Gina Carano, also American, 44 years old, 1.72 meters tall, with 7 wins and only 1 loss. Mike Perry wins. Nate Diaz withstood the second round and was saved by the time limit. Mike Perry pressured, struck, and struck some more, putting Nate Diaz in a very difficult situation. And in the last second of the fight, Mike Perry landed a knee strike that knocked Diaz down. After that, at the stoppage for the third round, due to injuries and heavy bleeding, the referee declared Mike Perry the winner. 2nd round begins. The first round was evenly matched between the two fighters. Nate Diaz, whose name was chanted by the crowd, managed to land some strikes and a takedown, but Mike Perry landed punches that threw him off balance in an intense first round. And now for the second round, finally. Nate Diaz vs. Mike Perry. Let's move on to another fight on the main card. Nate Diaz, the 41-year-old American, standing 6 feet 3 inches, 1.82 meters, tall, with 21 wins and 13 losses in his career, faces Mike Perry, known as Platinum, also an American, 34 years old, standing 6 feet 3 inches, 1.77 meters, tall, with 14 wins and 8 losses in his career. Ngannou wins. Guess what? Another knockout. In this Netflix MMA event, is the main card only for knockouts? Francis Ngannou managed to dominate the fight, controlling the speed, the strikes, and tying up Philippe Lins, who felt the blows. And with 40 seconds remaining, Francis Ngannou landed a cross and knocked out Philippe.